Live from Canadian Music Week at the Sheraton Center Hotel, it's the Promoter 101 podcast with your hosts, Dan Steiny Steinberg and Luke Milk of Magnesia Pierce. Join them today as they interview Goldenvoice's Elliott Lefko and United Talent Agency's Jack Ross. Put down your poutine fork, hop on in, and join us for the wild ride of Promoter 101. Ooh. Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba. All right. Promoter 101.
Hey, this is Billy Wayne Davis. You're listening to Promoter 101 with the Jew himself, Dan Steinberg.
What's up, Canada? Welcome to the podcast. How's our live audience doing?
Yeah, it's crazy.
We're really excited to be recording for the first time ever in Canada.
Very, very excited. Toronto, thank you so much for having us. Thank you to our good friend Craig Newman, who composed the Promoter 101 theme song there. I don't know if Milk of Magnesia is going to stick at all, but I love Craig's sense of humor.
It's one of the better nicknames. I like that.
Yeah, it worked.
So this is in our top. We have top 5 markets from last week, and they're an amazing list. But this is our number 2 market in the world last week, Toronto, Canada. Give it up, Toronto.
Yeah,
bring it up.
Woo.
Thank you all for tuning in, and enough with the hometown pandering here. We've been talking about this trip for a few weeks now, hinting into the podcast. Dan did some previews with Neil about this, and we're so glad to be at CMW 2018. And we're joined here today by Elliott Lefko from Goldenvoice and Jack Ross from UTA. Later, we're going to get into some time with them. But I'm sure there's some other tricks up our sleeve, right, Dan?
We got a few other things. I think it's amazing that Elliott's even here. I mean, it's the week between Coachellas. And for you to be able to sneak out this week as a Goldenvoice employee is amazing. Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah. I started wearing running shoes now because I walk so much. And it was, I used to wear like these cool cowboy boots, and then you get blisters and all that. So the running shoes is it feels good.
Are you going to bring back the boots for Stagecoach?
Yeah, I'll be going like the 3rd week for that, and I'm eating some ribs and some beers, and it's going to be good.
Elliott Bucky Lefko.
Yeah,
So for all the audiences listening out there, we are recording live. For anyone that's tuning in today, if you have any thoughts, questions, or want to hear more interviews like you're going to hear today from Jack and Elliott, you can always email us at steiny@promoter101.net.
It's Barry Dickens from ITB, and I'm on Promoter 101.
And it wouldn't be Promoter 101 if we weren't here plugging something. This is definitely the final stop on what's been the first leg of what we're calling our world tour here. We've gone everywhere from Aspen to LA to Austin to London, and now here in Toronto recording Promoter 101. It's definitely been a blast.
We are on tour like artists. It's weird.
Yeah, drinking a lot of beer and staying up late. It's been great. The conferences definitely have been a highlight for us. Made a ton of new friends. It's just been an amazing experience. And to everyone that's supported the podcast, tuned in, give us thoughts, feedbacks, reviews, it means a ton to Dan and I.
It's really fun. It's odd to go to South by Southwest and see people like hyping it up and quoting Promoter 101 facts. We're like, man, maybe we better make sure some of that shit's true from now on.
It's true.
Hi, my name's Ed Bicknell, and I'm Promoter 101, and I'm in room 24 something, and I've got an inside leg measurement of 32 inches and a cup size of 31A.
So why don't we jump into some news of the week, Dan?
Talking about truth. Let's do it.
Yeah. What's been going on?
Well, big shout out. Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment announced in addition, Tina Suka and Andy Miller are joining their executive staff in LA. That's pretty awesome.
Very pumped for them. Bit of sad news this week. Prog rock and jazz fusion guitarist icon Alan Holdsworth died April 16th at the age of 70. Rest in peace, Alan.
Yeah, I just read about that, and he was such a great guitar player and a little kind of underrated. Now, is the story true, though, that he had no money when he died and they can't bury him? I just read that in the Left Sits. Somebody wrote in about that. It seems kind of weird.
Well, if Bob wrote it, it must be true, right? It wasn't meant to be a
comment.
joke. Shit. Also in news, comedian Cat Williams was sentenced to 3 years of probation after pleading no contest for stealing celebrity photographer camera. He fucked with a photog. You don't do that.
Cat Williams fucking around with something? I'm quite shocked and surprised by that. How could that be?
Probation. I'm sure he's scared as shit of that.
Yeah. Polestar reported this week that Chinese investment firm CMC Capital Group made a minority strategic investment in CAA, putting CMC's chairman on CAA's board of directors. The investment will help CAA to continue to grow their operations in China, where they already have a dozen or so employees on the ground. And private equity has been a thing in the agency business for some time as agencies transition into more of the media platforms. And Silver Lake took a position at WME, and CMC is certainly not a new player in that space. They partnered with Rain Capital Group, which has ties to WME. So, private equity and creating a media platform for your clients is becoming the centralized focus for the agency business.
Yeah, everybody's gobbling up everybody else. I think we're going to get into that in a little bit with Jack talking about what happened to the agency group.
Absolutely.
So Chris Brown up to normal shenanigans as he got in trouble in Florida for sucker punching someone. That's new news, huh? Shocked anyone?
That's crickets from the audience for those of you who can't hear it.
Yeah, so what happens with Chris Brown? It's just like he gets up in the morning and he wants us to punch somebody, or how does that happen?
He break dances and then wants to punch somebody, I think.
It's just amazing to me that he can continue to do the destructive things that he does, and people still buy his tickets and they buy his records. And the kid's talented, but there's some problems there.
Yeah, like Aaron Hernandez.
Yeah. Third-party ticketing startup SeatGeek has acquired TopTix. It's an Israeli software firm. The deal was struck for $56 million, and the company's announced the deal on April 18th.
In other news, we'll be at the lobby bar later having cocktails if any of you guys want to join us.
That's a wrap for the news. Let's move on.
This is Ben Mensch from APA. You're listening to Promoter 101. Listen to more music.
It wouldn't be Promoter 101 for those of you who aren't familiar with the origin story of Promoter 101. Dan on Twitter is @TheJew, and for quite some time he's been tweeting about his daily interactions in the music business, good, bad, and different.
Even longer than that, I was bitching to my wife about what's wrong with the industry.
With the hashtag Promoter 101. So each week on the podcast, we take a moment to read some of the tweets Dan's made in the last week and give him a chance to break down what he was actually thinking. So we're going to go through a few of those right now. When you have been waiting to be paid on a show from a show settlement from a co-promoter so long that the replay confirms before that check arrives. Hashtag Promoter 101.
Now, you would think this was an independent promoter, but it happens to be one of the biggest, actually the biggest promoter in the world. And for some reason, we still haven't gotten our money.
How long has it been?
Well, the replay is a summer show at a shed, so that's amazing, right?
That is pretty incredible. Is that a controller somewhere just holding up a check? What is it?
I don't know. I will say when we co-promote with Elliott's company, we get paid really quickly. There's an interesting thing when you promote with some of the other promoters that are bigger, that they sit on the money as long as possible. And this used to be an old label trick. It's like, how long can we sit on your money and work on with your money? And it's just, hey guys, we're the little indie. Like, pay us.
Yeah. That amazing feeling of having an empty email box, mostly due to everybody else playing in the desert.
Yeah, it felt really good that everybody was at Coachella. So Friday was like a holiday Friday, like a light work day. You got to catch up on the emails. I went in Saturday, cleared out my inbox, knowing that I was going to be traveling. I just kind of stared at it like the way you stare at a sleeping baby. Like, it's so beautiful, an empty email box.
We appreciate you putting on that festival so you could empty our inboxes, Elliott. We really do. When somebody gives you their quote-unquote word, it later says you didn't get it in writing, so it doesn't matter. Hashtag, oh, it matters a great deal.
Principles still matter in this business or any other.
Simple as that. When a manager blames the agent, at the exact same time the agent is blaming the manager. Hashtag Promoter 101.
This just in. Promoters and managers throw everybody under the bus.
That happens?
Yeah, I don't know. Not Jack, though.
Care to call out who it was?
No.
When a venue changes the showtime without consulting the promoter, manager, or agent. Hashtag Promoter 101.
Yeah, I know Rick Hansen wouldn't want me to call him out right now, but they were really, really humble about fixing that for us really quickly. But apparently we're going to be doing a 7 o'clock show instead of an 8 o'clock show in Minneapolis.
I'm sure that point of humility came to Rick Hansen after a very stern conversation along the way.
No, he was so quick to apologize, and it was so cool. It happens. It's their norm for their showtime, and it wasn't a big deal, but it was one of those things that it was like, it really should have been the artist calling the showtime, not the venues.
Is that something that you ever pull, Elliott? Changing showtimes without consulting anybody?
All the time.
That does it for our Promoter 101 tweets of the week. If you're not following Dan on Twitter, he's at The Jew. He has some amazing ramblings about this business. I encourage you all to take a moment each day and enjoy some of his musings.
Hello, my name is Renatas Nachajus. I'm from Lithuania. My company is Falcon Club, Promoter 101.
So we'll start today by our interview section of this podcast, breaking down some questions here with the two gentlemen that are joining us here on stage. We're thrilled to have one of the big dogs of United Talent Agency, Mr. Jack Ross, joining us here on stage. Would you all please give a welcome? Jack Ross.
Thank you.
Welcome to the podcast, Jack. Right off the bat, the devaluation of the Canadian dollar, how has it affected ticket sales and the amount of traffic in the business?
There's certainly been an effect, but it's not all detrimental either. You know, it created some room on the highway for the Canadian bands. There's a little bit less competition, you know, from artists from the rest of the world touring in Canada. With that said, you know, Elliott might have a better perspective on it than I do, but most of our artists from around the world still want to come to Canada. It's really important to them to play here, and it's a great concert market. People go out to shows, and you know, I know you guys sell tickets, right? So you like that. You know, there's no question it's ticket prices have gone up for the Canadian consumers, but you know, it really is a healthy economy. You know, frankly, I don't think the rest of the world really understands why the American dollar is so much stronger than the other currencies.
Hey, we don't need to get into that right now.
Yeah. Be careful the doors you open.
Hey there, this is Seth Hurwitz. I am one of the last independent promoters, and proud of it, here in Washington, D.C., and you are listening to Promoter 101.
I want to take a moment because you did mention his name here, but we're joined as well today by Senior Vice President from Goldenvoice and AEG, joining us in between Coachella weekends. He's living in Los Angeles, but Toronto native, Mr. Elliott Lefko. I want to welcome
Give it up for Elliott. Woo-hoo. Many people don't know this, but Elliott's got to be one of the biggest music fans in the world, because last night I was ready to go to bed, and he was like, no, we're going to the Silver Dollar. We got to take Canada in. This place isn't going to be here next time we come back. We got to go pay tribute. And I could not get him out of that place. He's like, fucking go home then. I'm staying. These guys are great.
Yeah, I spent a year of my life booking the Silver Dollar, and, you know, I just... There's this song by The Replacements about growing old in a bar, and that's what it felt like if I would have stayed at that place. All the cocaine and everything every night down there. And
is there confession there?
Pardon me?
Is there confession there?
Everything was like it was seedy place. I was telling you that the Waverly Hotel was attached to Silver Dollar, and the people who lived there used to steal the sound equipment. And then we'd have to go down to the police station in the middle of the night, and the bands would say, "Where were you?" And I was at the police station. So it was crazy times down there, and I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore. Well, I wanted to show you what that was all about.
No, I appreciate it. And there was a moment last night that I met the guy that does most of the shows there, Dan
Burke.
Now, and he's been booking that place forever, right?
And he had lost like 2 teeth on his upper teeth, and he said he ate something and he's got to go see the dentist tomorrow. But it was just like the people here who know him. It was sort of typical Dan. But the guy's so passionate that the fact they're going to take away this club from him is really sad. There's another club in the city called the Matador, which is an old country and western bar, and the city is so fucked because they won't let the Matador open again, even though some guy put all this money into it. And Dan wants to go and book some bands in there, and he can't because the city won't do it. So I don't know. There's this weird divide in Toronto right now where, on one hand, you want to have more music and more clubs, and on the other hand, they can't do it. So it's a difficult time in Toronto for that.
Is there a lack of clubs here, Jack? Are venues a problem? It seems like there are a plethora.
Yeah, there is a plethora. Toronto's one of the great live music cities of the world, but recently some clubs have closed, some others are threatening to close. There's some problems getting some others opened. There's a lot of regulations. It's a really tough business. I have so much respect for the people that do it well and look after the artists and the patrons every night with the kind of respect they deserve. It's a tough business.
It's definitely blood, sweat that goes into those, each night, which is
sure is.
So your relationship, both you and Elliott, intertwined quite well. As a matter of fact, at dinner last night, you mentioned that Elliott actually got you fired at one point.
Well, no, Elliott didn't get me fired. Elliott
there was some alcohol flowing, but that's what the story sounded like to me.
No, it was...
Your relationship with Elliott was directly correlated to you getting fired.
Yes, it was.
Okay, so I wasn't just hearing things. That
that's
happened,
true.
Right?
Years ago in 70s, 80s, and I worked there in the late 80s, early 90s, there was a company called The Agency. It was owned by David Bluestein and Vinnie Singamani and Michael Cole from CPI. So it was a strange situation where a promoter owns an agency. And I didn't really have a whole lot of interaction with those people. I was a young agent, really just getting my career started, and was given real carte blanche by the company to go and develop original talent. And one of the bands that I started working with were the Bare Naked Ladies, who have gone on to become a huge, massive success all over the world, and they were just getting started. And Elliott was one of the first promoters that paid attention to the Bare Naked Ladies and got involved with them, invested his time and energy. And Elliott was working at a new startup company in town called MCA Concerts, that's morphed into Universal Concerts and House of Blues. And anyways, Elliott was a young promoter, a few years older than me, and I had a lot of respect for him. We were friends already, and we started working on the Bare Naked Ladies, and all of a sudden this band took off. It exploded. And Elliott and I went to work with the idea of booking the biggest tour that had ever been booked in Canadian history. We were going so deep.
I believe it's pronounced Canada, sir.
No, it's not. We were going deep into the hinterland, trying to find places for the Bare Naked Ladies to play. And it was working. We were having a blast working on it. And I literally forgot that the company I worked for was owned by another promoter. And when they wanted to get involved with the Bare Naked Ladies, I told them they were too late. That ship had sailed. And the next day, the vice president of the company walked into my office, said, "Oh, you fucking blew it, Jack. Why did you tell them that?" I was like, "Well, what am I supposed to tell them?" It's like, "Well, I've been told to fire you. I know you love this business." So I told them I would let you quit, and then we would let you continue to work in the music business. It was a very...
We're going to let you work in the music business?
It was a very mafia moment, yes.
What the fuck?
They were going to continue to let me work in the music business. And I sort of hated the place. I loved being an agent. I loved the artists that I worked with. But the place didn't have any soul, and I was glad to leave there. I started a management company and did that for 4 or 5 years until I got the opportunity to get back into the agency business and become a partner and, run a shop and treat people the way I thought they deserved to be treated. And, that was 22 years ago that we started the Agency Group Canada, and we really tried to, change the way the business operated and... so that no young agent. So
what I'm really hearing here is Elliott is responsible for the agency group coming to Canada.
Elliott, Jake Gold, there's numerous people responsible for helping us get started. Certainly Sam Feldman firing Ralph James had a lot to do with it.
They didn't let him quit?
They did not let him quit, and they did try to put him out of the music business, but Ralph and I were too stubborn to back down. So.
Yeah, when I was growing up in Toronto, when I was promoting, I would just promote by myself. I had a little apartment on St. George, and no money, and I would just put on all these gigs, and sometimes like it would be as attended as this session here, sparsely, and but we'd have like 4 people at the El Macombo or something like that, and I'd have no money, and I'd have to try to pay the band, and there was this giant company in Toronto like CPI, and they'd be promoting the Rolling Stones and all that great stuff, and I'd be doing like the Red Hot Chili Peppers for their first gig, and they didn't care about it. And then all of a sudden, the Red Hot Chili Peppers would become famous, and they would like take the band over. And I'd say like, okay, can you hire me? I'm making no money. Can you pay me?
That's always a great pitch, by the way. Can you hire me? I'm making no money.
I'm making nothing. Can you pay me $30,000 a year? And they would never hire me. And they would go and hire another person and another person, another person. And I'd go to their office, and they'd make me wait in the lobby, and I'd use their phone to call agents and try to book some gigs, and, and then. And I remember, like, they try to be nice to me and invite me to, like, a show or something, and you can sit and watch the show. And so it was just, like, it was sort of the same thing that Jack was saying. And then I'd go to New York, and they owned another agency in New York. And I remember, like, one time I tried to get PJ Harvey when she was first starting. And the agents gave me PJ Harvey. And it was the same thing, like, why are you giving this guy PJ Harvey? You own your company. And it was like, because this guy's going to go and promote it, and he's going to try really hard. And eventually I finally I just said, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I went and I took a trip to India. And I'd always wanted to go because like the Beatles and everything. So I went and spent a year there and all these other places. And just said, fuck it, whatever happens, happens.
This vision of you playing the sitar on acid.
Yeah, totally, right, in Baga Beach. And then I came home. The day I came home, I got a gig from another company, which was MCA Concerts. And and they hired me, which was the company that Jack mentioned. So it's sort of like sometimes you just gotta like say fuck it, give it all away, and then it comes back to you. And I didn't have to wait for anybody anymore, so that was kind of nice. And I got my $30,000 job.
If you ever become available, we'll hire you for $30,000 a year, man.
And well, I got to say with
there's job security there.
Their company is kind of funny because they were just like 2 independent guys, and I worked with Dan's partner Jason, and he'd been fired from a company, and he didn't give up. He just kept going, and they got bands like one at a time, like Luke's band or some other band or Gillian Welch, and now they've built up this great company where they're kicking ass and they're not part of a major company. They treat bands really well. They treat managers really well, and I think that's why a lot of people work with them is because. People really want to get treated well. They want to make sure when they get to the gig, everything's going to get taken care of. It's going to be promoted properly. So that's a really nice story. And I also want to say with Jack, too, that he's working with the Arkells now. And I remember when Arkells were first starting off, and they were just like a little baby band making $100, and people didn't really know them. But the singer had this vision that he wants to be a star. And I think that's what's lacking with a lot of bands are that a lot of bands are just too easy to sort of say whatever. This guy is just like, he could be a manager. He could be like President of the United States, this guy. And Max, he's just like a crazy guy who wants to be on top, who wants to get to the top. And now he's realizing his dream. And Jack's kind of behind the scenes, quietly doing
Jack's chief of staff to this guy's president?
Yeah, and he's doing like what he did for Bare Naked Ladies or what he did for Moxie Fruvis or, what he does for like some of his other bands that have grown from like just little being baby bands or to Sam Roberts to having like a living, having a family, having a house. And, Jack's behind there. And the good thing about Jack is, he doesn't drive people crazy. He's very patient. He's just very supportive of what's going on. And he sees the big picture. He sees long term.
Jack, what the fuck is it, those things that you're doing behind the scenes to make that stuff happen?
What's ever necessary, Dan. I'm a really big believer that as an agent, our primary focus is to, to find employment for our clients. We're trying to find them jobs. We're trying to get them paid. And to accomplish that, we get down and work in the trench with them and sort of what's ever necessary. I'm a big believer in building teams behind clients. So I have clients that come in that don't have a manager or label or publisher. When we started working with Nickelback, they were a completely independent band, literally making $100 a show, and help them put together a team that, they've now sold over 50 million records around the world and are out playing for $500,000. It's a really exciting process, something I love to do as an agent.
We appreciate you bringing Nickelback to the world.
Well,
yeah. And it was an incredible success, not to knock that, but thank you for that.
Fuck, man, he's laughing all the bank. All the way to the bank on that. What are you talking about?
All the way to the bank.
Yep.
Nickelback has put so much fucking money in their bank account, man. You can make all the jokes you want. Those guys are not laughing at all.
Not at all.
I will take as many Nickelback dates as you guys want to send our way, by the way.
Exactly.
Earlier you mentioned Ralph James, which has obviously been a really great partnership for you and Ralph over the years here. You mentioned his exit from Feldman and your timely exit from the management business. How did this partnership and friendship between you and Ralph start?
I can remember meeting Ralph for the first time. We were in an elevator at a college entertainment conference. We were both young agents. Ralph had been in a band and had a lot of success touring, but he hung up his bass and picked up the telephone and started working as an agent. And I had my first agent job. And we're in a crowded elevator, and we're wearing laminate name tags, and Ralph grabbed my name tag. Jack Ross, I've been looking for you. And we've sort of been friends ever since. We worked together at that company, the agency. We both hated it, but we loved being agents. And when I was managing, Ralph was an agent for some of my clients. It was really natural for us to start a company together. We were going to be called the ARC, the Artist Representative Company. We went looking for partners and wound up at Neil Warnock's door, and Neil had a really successful company called the Agency Group that was doing massive business in Europe, and he had opened in New York a couple years before, and Ralph and I flew to London and talked Neil into backing us and opening the agency group in Canada. And it's been a wild ride. Ralph's he's sort of an agent savant. He has an amazing memory. He can tell you phone numbers and addresses and how many steps are involved in the load-in of venues all over the world. And I knew that Ralph needed a manager. And, it's sort of how we divided up the work. So I've always looked at it that way, that I manage Ralph. And then we started bringing in other people in the company, and I manage...
well, that's a completely successful artist. You've done well with him.
Yes, I have.
Let's take a second and talk about how you've changed touring lately. Because you started with one market, booking small clubs, and now you're buying the full tour for North America in most cases, but I'm talking about bands like Kraftwerk and Sigur Rós and Leonard Cohen. How does that happen that you wind up with the entire tour? And how does that make you feel when you have to cut out the local guy that built that act when you used to be the local guy?
I first started with Leonard Cohen, and that was a dream come true for me as a young Canadian Jewish man. And I used to bring his books of poetry to summer camp and his albums, and he was a big influence. And then one day I was in Los Angeles, and it was somebody said, like, oh, we've got this guy and he wants to do some gigs. Have you ever heard of him? And yes. And it was just like nobody else had heard of Leonard at the time. And he wanted to get back into the business because his money had been stolen. And so I had a meeting with him and his lawyer. And Leonard was like, he's like some grandfather. He's just like coming up to me like, do you want a candy? And it was like so funny. And he just said, I want to do some gigs. And he had like a napkin, and he had written on it like, I've got this guy from Spain I want to bring in as my guitar player, and I want the band to wear suits, and I need like a guy to help me. And I had never been a manager before in my life, but I kind of quickly realized the things that he wanted wasn't going to be hard. Like, I knew a lawyer who did immigration, and there's this place in LA called SIR where all the bands rehearse, and I knew some tour managers. So I just said, no problem, I can take care of whatever you need. And I got him whatever he wanted. And then one day he said, okay, let's do a tour, and let's go book some gigs in Maritimes of Canada. So I put together a tour in Fredericton and all these little tiny places. And then he went, and the first night, the day before, he did a rehearsal, and it was just like me and this other promoter from Montreal called Ruben Fogel, who had helped me with it. And he did the whole show for us. It was amazing. And then the first night of the gig, he was so nervous that he would just speak in French. It was just like, but anyways, that went on to become a really good, I worked with him for 5 or 7 years, whatever it was, and got to promote all the shows. And then I learned about where you put artists in North America. What's the difference between a good market like Asheville, North Carolina versus a crummy market like Cleveland or a place like that, or where to go. And I kind of knew what the agents know, like what rooms to go to and how to do all that kind of stuff. And I really loved it. And then the next one was same sort of thing. I was walking at Coachella one day, and one of the heads of AEG said, "Oh, this guy manages Nick Cave, and he wants somebody to help him." And I went like, "Oh, what's wrong with this picture?" Like, I'll totally do it. And it was when Nick Cave was still not that popular, and I started working with him and tried to apply what I had learned with Leonard Cohen, which was these artists should be playing in theaters, not in clubs, and ticket prices should be higher, and they should have better production. And I started to do that for Nick Cave, and all of a sudden his touring business got really much bigger too. And I felt like I can do it. And the next one was I was doing a gig with Kraftwerk here in Toronto, and they'd only done like a couple gigs that year. And I went to the manager there and said, like, "You guys should be playing way more gigs. You're legendary. You're such a great band." And he said, "Okay, go and tell the singer that." And I went and talked to the singer, and I told him about all these different places. And the guy was going, "Great, let's do it." And so I went and booked a tour for Kraftwerk, and they did this 3D show. It was incredible. And they're like robots up there. And then afterwards, when the show is almost over, they actually bring these robots up on stage who do the song. It was like really incredible. And then one day I got a call from the band Sigur Rós, the Icelandic band, and the guy from Kraftwerk had recommended that they come and work with me because he had a really good time with them. So that worked out really well. And
That'd be an interesting tea party, Sigur Rós and Kraftwerk hanging out.
Yeah, it's
talking about the Jewish Canadian guy.
Yeah, the good thing about those bands is just like they're so sophisticated in terms of their music. They've been doing it for such a long time. There's no nonsense. It's like guys going to work, and just such excellent people. And then recently I started working with Father John Misty, and I think there's like this connection. It's like Leonard Cohen to Nick Cave to Father John Misty. It's like this.
Progression almost.
Pardon me?
It's progression almost.
Yeah, it's
right?
a progression of like, not they all wear suits, but it's all like, it's just like this sort of, very progressive, sophisticated, deep, intelligent kind of music that people really love. And now I just want to go and find other bands to work with and trying to, because like, again, like, I don't want to be the person who has to like stand in line and try to get a band where 10 other people are trying to get that band, and it's one night only, and you make like a little bit of money, and then nobody knows who you are. I'd rather get involved behind the scenes and
make a lot of bit of money,
make more money, and try to get involved in the discussion where I can talk with someone like Jack or somebody else and say like, here's a few ideas, and people actually listen to me.
I heard you were recently in Israel when Robert Corey called and spoke of Leonard's passing. So you obviously have a profound connection to his music and his work. What was that moment like when you're in Israel?
Well, it was funny. We got a call at our office from somebody saying, I heard Leonard Cohen died. And I knew he was like really sick. And I had seen him a few weeks before at his record release party in Los Angeles at the Canadian consulate. And he was really frail, but he was talking about like making the next record and all that kind of stuff. So like he was fine. And then we got this call, and usually when you get a call like that, it's sort of like the cliche, like where there's smoke, there's fire. So you thought like, okay, something's happening here. But I phoned his manager, and nothing's up, everything's cool. And then when I got the call from Robert in Israel, it was the middle of the night, and as soon as I picked up the phone, I realized, okay, Leonard's dead. And then he said, Leonard's dead, and he died a few days ago, and we're gonna have we had the funeral in Montreal or whatever it was. And it was just amazing, though, afterwards, all the phone calls and emails. Never had like that, like where people say like your phone's blowing up. I never had that before in my life, and that was the first time where all these people were coming out and saying, are you okay? Or like, I loved him or whatever. So it's nice to be involved in something that so many people cared about.
Now, what are you doing hanging at the Canadian consulate? Like, how does that just like randomly become a hang for you? Did you guys bump into each other at the Canadian consulate?
Yeah, we stick together as Canadians. It's... No, we don't.
Is that a thing? Is that like the
yeah,
club or something?
The Canadian consulate in LA is really active, hosting events, and
it's like the club here at the Hilton or something, where it's just like there's free wine at 5.
In Canada, we celebrate arts, we celebrate artists, and our consulate in LA continues that. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, and what there's been it's a beautiful place, in Hancock Park, and the U.S. consulate is nearby, and the Canadian government purchased this house Really cool place, a swimming pool, and the consulate general or wherever the representative, the first one was really cool, very supportive of the artists, and the new guy's taken over the same way. So they'll fly an artist to come down there and invite music supervisors, people like that, to try to help these artists. And then once a year, when the Grammy Awards are happening, they'll have a party there too and try to gather a number of Canadian artists. And in Leonard Cohen's case, he felt really comfortable as far as like doing his record releases party there. So he would come there and he'd play the record and have journalists in there from all over the world. And then afterwards he would do a Q&A. And it was a really beautiful thing.
All right, I was making fun of it first, but now I'm really just fucking jealous that your country supports the arts and ours just cuts all the money funding. I'm a little embarrassed, actually. Can we take a second and talk about, as an agent, how you feel about the concept as a promoter picking up the entire tour and as a one-shot buy? And does that endanger your relationship as an agent with the act? If they can just make one call to one guy, do they still need you?
You know, there's some crazy stories. Certainly, the agency business is... while it has been a period of real growth across the board for the talent agencies, you know, you in your news off the top, you were talking about CA in China. You know, UTA has a big presence in China, so does WME. There's a lot of emerging markets, and the agency business has become very big business. You know, these companies are valued at billions of dollars. But with that said, in the music business, there's certainly always an issue. You know, there's the famous story that I've heard is, you know, Michael Cole settling a show with Paul McGuinness, U2's manager. And U2's represented by Premier Talent, by Frank Barcelona's company. And, you know, he's sort of the grandfather of the rock touring business. He's the agent that really was the first one that put together regional promoters and had a really professional organization. And
it's basically organized crime, right?
I don't know about that. It was a touch before my time in the business, but Cole's doing the show in Toronto, and U2 has just played CNE Stadium. It sold 90,000 tickets. And Cole, CPI, had a standard deal at the time. It included a 15% promoter profit on a stadium show. And Cole's settling
that'd be great.
Cole's settling with the manager. He says, we made so much money tonight. Man, we made so much money. I can't believe that you let us make this much money. We are robbing you blind, Paul. And McGuinness like, what? What are you talking about? Your agent and these deals? He's not doing you any favors, man. And if we were working directly, you wouldn't have to pay an agent fee, and you'd be making a lot more money. The deals would be a lot tighter. And at that point, that's when all the deals changed, when all the agents had to really change their game. Premier Talent, shortly after that, stopped being the most dominant agency in the music business.
So the reason we're on versus deals from promoter profit deals is fucking because Michael Cole wanted to cut the agent out of the mix?
Yep.
So he fucked all of us in one foul swoop.
That's how that went down.
You need to send him a thank you card, Luke.
Yeah.
You know, it really depends. Every situation's different. A good agent's going to look at each artist and each situation unique. It's important that you treat each situation uniquely and each artist uniquely. When I sold a massive tour to Elliott with the Bare Naked Ladies, it made a lot of sense.
But you never feared him cutting you out of the mix.
No, I did not. I also knew that I had a great relationship with the band, and I was doing something really positive for them. You know, I don't operate my business or live my life from a fearful place. You know, my glass is half full, and I go out and attack the world that way. And I really believe it's served me well. And I really believe that, you know, if you treat people right and you look after them, you know, they're going to, most of the time, treat you the same way. You know, hopefully you have good instincts to get involved with good people. You know, certainly Elliott and I have done this a few times. I've done it with other promoters. It really depends on the artist and the situation. In the very modern music business, it is happening more and more. Tours coming out of our office are, there's a lot of them being bought, one-stop tour shopping. With the Live Nation people, they're very aggressive. They offer amazing deals. And then sometimes it's with AEG, but it really depends on the artist. And, an agent's job is to go try to do the best thing for their client, and whatever that best thing is. And sometimes the local promoters are going to get burned. But, there's been so much apocalyptic talk in this business over the 30 years that I've been in it.
We all seem to evolve and work together to the next level.
We absolutely evolve, and it's an entrepreneur's business, and people find ways to go out and build successful businesses like you've done with Emporium.
Yeah, I think that, I agree with you. Although, your thing is where your glass is half full that you're sort of saying, and I think that's a really good point about you. I keep getting I keep expecting to get fired all the time. For some reason. And,
wow, that's gotta suck, dude.
Well, no, but it's just like, it's because of the business. It's like there's so many, mean people in this business, and that people really want to, cut you down.
Do you need a hug?
Pardon me?
Do you need a hug?
Well, I just tried to, be truthful here, but, because I think that, since we're standing here, but I think that that's why I always try to go and strive for something more all the time and try to get something a bit better. And when we were talking about the Arkells and we were talking about ideas about how to make them bigger, and I said, well, maybe we could do Coachella possibly, and didn't know if it could really happen, but we tried, and it took 10 months and finally did happen. But it was just
well, it didn't happen exactly like that. I said, Elliott, can you help me get Arkells on Coachella? And he went, sure, Jack, I'll help. And
he waved his magical wand, and it happened.
Yeah.
And then it took 10 months to happen because it's
45 minutes set,
yeah.
10 months in the planning.
But it's so nice to when you can actually produce something like that. It feels good.
You're listening to Promoter 101. This is Martin Atkins from Public Image, Killing Joke, Ministry, 9 Inch Nails. I got a Grammy, a big face. Fuck off.
Let's take a minute and change things up, and let's play everybody's favorite game, Dead, Donut, or Canadian. We're going to give you a celebrity's name. You'll answer the question. If you get it correct, you'll win a donut. And if you don't, no fucking donut for you. It's that simple. Now, the questions are, remember, the answers are either dead, donut, or Canadian. You guys ready to play?
Jack, you've played this game before.
Is it just us playing, or is the audience playing?
We'll start with you guys, and then we'll move on to the game.
Okay.
It'll be great. We're going to move on to alcohol later, but we'll start with this. Jack, Sid Caesar, is he dead, donut, or Canadian?
Dead.
You're right. He's from Yonkers. Go ahead and pick a donut out. You've won.
Well.
Elliott, the Montreal Expos, are they dead, donut, or Canadian?
Donut.
How did you manage to fuck that up? There were 2 of the 3, and you still got that wrong. That's why you're always worried about getting fired, huh?
Patty Ann, what was the name of the mascot for the Expos?
Oopie.
Luke, Jim Carrey, is he dead, donut, or Canadian?
Canadian.
That fucker's Canadian, man. Go ahead and grab a donut. I think Patty Ann should get a donut, too, since she answered the questions correctly.
Yeah.
I'm coming to you.
The buzz is about...
We got a show going on. Yeah, there's a buzzer, there's a time thing going on. All right, let's get back to the regular questions that everybody's mouth's full. That's an awesome thing. How about a speed round? You just can't say both. I'll give you an either-or question. Elliott, MP3 or vinyl?
Vinyl, and I love vinyl.
Jack, CAA or Satan?
Some might say the same thing.
Luke, better on your French fries, ketchup or poutine?
Poutine, for sure. That's not pandering. I love poutine.
If you'd gone the other way, they would have booed you, I guarantee it.
This is Rob Hallett from Robo Magic on Promoter 101.
Let's play everyone's favorite game, Truth or Patron.
We're going to invite a special guest bartender for us today. We're going to welcome our friend from the Feldman Agency, Mr. Richard Mills.
Yeah.
Give it up for Rich Mills.
International man of mystery.
So this is how we play Truth or Patron. Each of our panelists will get a question that's going to be harder than anything they've gotten so far. They can answer the question leaving the shot, or they can do the shot and not answer the question as a mulligan. Of course, they could do the shot and answer this question, making them a true badass, as I'm sure this Toronto, Canada CMW crowd would reward them for that. Am I right, Canada?
Yeah.
And of course, I would never ask them to do anything that I wouldn't do first. So cheers, fuckers.
Whoa. To Dan.
Awful. I mean, it's good. It's really good. You're going to love it.
I like Patron.
Feel like a shot full of it, though?
Please pour Patty Ann a shot. Jack, have you ever been tempted to poach an act from another agency? If so, who?
Daily? What are you talking about? Like, it's an aggressive business. If you're going to be an agent, you certainly need to be aggressive.
Elliott. Are you not going to do it?
I just told you the truth.
I know, but I wanted to see you drink. Like, come on, man.
What a sport. Give him a hand.
Get up for him. Elliott, you work with both agencies. Stay right there, Rich. Which is better for you, in your mind, as an agency, Feldman or UTA? For the internet at home, he drank quickly. Luke, if you could get rid of any one competitor, no questions asked, who would it be?
Red light, for sure.
Well done. Hey, thanks for playing Truth or Patron. How you guys feeling out there, Toronto?
Great sports. Thanks for taking part in that.
Hey, everyone. This is Sasha Bombaji, production manager for Barry Manilow, Beck, and a few other greats. And I'll be coming up next on Promoter 101.
So we're going to go ahead and open it up to some questions for our live audience here. I think we have a roaming mic or somebody running around back with it right now. So do us a favor, raise your hand. We'll bring the mic to you, and we'll open it up just for some general Q&A right now.
Anybody? Anyone at all? Okay, up front.
Hi guys, how you doing? This has been a lot of fun so far. Glad we came into this one.
Can you say your name and where you're from?
Yeah, sorry. So my name's James. I am 1/5 of an alternative rock band from the UK. We just come over.
Give us the name.
Where Fires Are, we're called. Yeah.
Where Fires Are.
Where Fires Are, yeah. We've got 4 shows this week as well. So starting with Cherry Colours at 1 a.m., sorry, in the morning. Yeah.
It was like 1 p.m., man. You guys
1
must
p.m.
suck.
Oh, God, we're late. Yeah.
South by.
We're the sound check.
Yeah.
What's your question, sir?
So, I mean, my question is basically just if you've got any tips. I mean, we're kind of, obviously, you know, just trying to do that thing of just playing as many shows and get on, you know, with booking agents, that kind of thing, as much as possible. We've done everything kind of DIY ourselves. So really, we're at that point just trying to kick it into the next gear and start working with some, you know, with people that can help us do that. So do you have any tips?
I think actually all 3 of them are going to have great suggestions for you because Luke is a manager, which we haven't actually talked about. But first of all, we should commend you on being an artist that's doing it yourself that came to Canada to get the word out internationally. So that's fucking awesome. Can all of you guys give him some insight on what they might be able to do to get the word out?
Off the top of my head here, I mean, I don't know anything about the band or what you're doing, but for me, for new acts, curated playlists on streaming platforms across the board are a great way to develop new fans and relationships with those fans. So we, as a company, has hired a full-time plugger for all of our clients to deal with Spotify playlists, with Amazon, with Apple Music to a degree. So those platforms are certainly the future of music. They're a great tool for discovery, and I can't recommend any more to spend a ton of time investing in the relationships with playlisters out there. So,
do you think it's good working, as you say, with playlists? Because obviously with, trying to keep costs low and all that sort of thing along the way, so we try and focus our money in certain places. And obviously with terms of stuff like social media, we generally try and do as much of that we can ourselves. At the same time, we obviously fall a bit short on that because...
Where have your socials gone? How are your followers on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook? What are the numbers?
Yeah, they're quite good. We're about...
What's quite good?
We've been a band for about 3 years now, and we're on about 2,500 on Facebook.
Okay.
Twitter, what we're doing, about 1,200 on Twitter, that kind of thing. Instagram's doing quite well. So there's a few sites like that which we've got a following essentially, and we're working on building that. But as I say, obviously being 5 guys with jobs that we're trying to hold down, that kind of thing.
Now, the thing about social media, and if Jamie Loeb were here, she'd be preaching the fuck out of this, who's the head of marketing for Nederlander, is keeping things constant. Our generation had album covers that we stared at and we knew everything. Mm-hmm. I could tell you that Ted Templeman produced Van Halen's album in 1984 because I stared at that album jacket when I played the album nonstop. Now it's different. There aren't album covers, but there's interaction. And you can interact with your fans as a two-way street. It's not like TV where they're just watching.
Yeah.
You can constantly feed that beast. So it's about tweeting real things. When you're standing in the line at the bank, when you're at the DMV, tweet something. It doesn't have to be our album's coming out on Tuesday. It's like, I hate it when Q-tips run out because, like, I've got an itch deep inside my ear. Whatever. Fans can relate. Find a way to keep feeding the beast, and it shouldn't always be a plug, which I think you would back up quite.
I definitely agree with that, and I think for the same thing about social media, content and new music can be said the same way too. You know, even if you're concerned about getting new music out there that's perfect, don't be. Just get new music out there constantly, graze the public along, keep feeding them. You know, the idea of being in an album cycle once every 18 months or 24 years is years dead at this point. And it's very much staying relevant and staying fresh and feeding your fan base. So get as much music out there as you possibly can.
Jack?
Don't worry about us business people either. It's got to be all about the fans. Play a lot where you're from, build a crowd, build a following. Anybody who's successful, like we all find, and then we fight over you. You know, you can go for lunch.
And then Elliott buys the tour.
Yeah, you can go for lunch for weeks. If you build a following, build a crowd, don't worry about your business. Work on your music. And I know it's cliche, and it's almost, twee of me to say, but we'll find you. The word gets out. There isn't anybody that's having a career that hasn't been looked at. You build a crowd and build a following, we will all flock to you. It like lemmings, it'll make you sick. But if you build a crowd,
but first it'll make you feel really cool.
Work hard on your music, work hard on your shows, work hard on your interaction with your fans, and the business people they'll be all over you.
That's good advice.
There's something there too with Luke works with two acts, Straight No Chaser and Home Free, who have made a business of being available to their fans after the shows, where they don't sell a VIP meet and greet so much as they tell you to stay after the show, and they'll meet anyone that wants to stay to talk to them. They'll be in the lobby signing autographs. Helps with merch sales, but the interaction in the fan base is huge. And they also invite you to take pictures and post them and ask you to.
Yeah, the hand-to-hand interaction with fans and creating genuine connections with people applies almost universally to everything in life. It's not just making a fan, it's a business relationship, it's a friendship. All those things can be universally applied. So the more interaction you can have with fans and the more genuine connections you can get to your music and to you as artists, that's going to help propel and create a foundation for your business for years to come. So take the time, spend it with fans after the shows, hang out at the merchandise table.
That shit works too, man. I got Straight No Chaser money. That shit's good.
It is pretty good.
And I think that maybe you should find a Canadian band and do a tour with some Canadian band in the UK, and then do the same thing
like
here.
A swap thing?
A swap thing. Yeah.
We've done quite a few of them throughout the actual UK, but obviously we're branching out a bit into kind of North America at the moment, so yeah, that's probably a really good idea, actually,
Yeah.
Any other advice besides finding a Canadian band? Is that always the answer?
Yeah, it's just
Canada's just the answer, man. The Canadian art.
I was literally about to ask for Patron, and it just got handed to me. So
now you have to drink it.
Now you got to drink it.
Good man.
Good man.
I think that
Rich
means
will fill that up for you.
That means Patty Ann did drink her Patron.
By the way, before you leave, the lady who handed you the Patron is the COO for Ticketmaster Canada. I bet there's promotional fucking opportunities galore there.
I'll get you there. Yeah, cheers.
Don't let her leave without figuring that out.
Oh yeah, we won't. We'll get on that.
Do we have any other questions? Hey, look at that. We'll get you a mic, we promise.
Make sure you give us your name and your company. Give us a little introduction, please.
And if you've gone gold somewhere else in the world, we want to know that.
Hi, my name's Alex Gage. I play with a band called the Magnetic Revelators. We're based out of Kitchener-Waterloo and the GTA.
Shout out to the GTA.
Woo! Hometown.
Nobody from the GTA.
Some people call it the Six.
So we've been doing it all on our own right now, independently, and we're starting to look into maybe working with management or with booking agencies. And, not to make you give away too many secrets, but are there any kind of red flags for sharks? Because we've had a couple people come up who've seen real sketchy.
If they have a tattoo of a shark on their ankle,
Probably
run.
a shark.
Hey, Luke, what's your newest tattoo?
Shark on my ankle.
All right.
Man, anybody that wants you to pay them to do their job, fucking run. All of us make our money because we do our job well, and if we believe in you, we will fucking invest in you with our time, with our money, with our resources. The second I ask you to write me a check, I'm a problem.
I'm curious, what has been your experience so far? What was your red flag, or what moment might have been questionable? Are you comfortable sharing that?
Actually, funny that you mentioned that. A lot of it was people talking about kind of fees up front and just, I don't know, bad vibes. But asking for fees up front was one of the big things that kind of set me off. And
yeah, for management or for agency across the board, that is a gigantic red flag. For a publicist, I maybe would understand where that's coming from, but if it's a developing act, even in the situation with the publicist, it might be questionable. So,
Rich, can we get him a shot for asking a question? Awesome. We got a question in the back of the room. All right. She'll bring you a mic, and Rich will get you fucked up, because that's how we play our game.
Hello?
How you doing? What's your name? Where you from?
Peter, I'm from Toronto. I'm not currently working in the industry, but I'm looking into getting into the industry. So one of the very first people I heard speaking on engagement was Ryan Leslie, and that was about 2 years ago, and he kind of says something along the same lines as you guys did. But in a different manner, slightly, which was that he created events specifically that people wanted to pay more money for. So he had a smaller fan base, and
you're talking about the VIP experience for that high-level fan for the smaller dedicated,
with a small dedicated fan base.
Yeah, you can maximize that out well. That's absolutely true.
So from someone that's interested in getting into management, how do you navigate that compared to someone with a larger fan base that might not engage in the same manner? Like, how do you
maximize getting that VIP dollar when you're a smaller act?
When you're a smaller act, and how does that translate into me as, like, let's say, hypothetically, me as a manager?
Okay, well, Luke and Jack will both be great answering this question, I think.
For developing acts, what I've realized is that there are fans out there that if they are a fan of the artist, that they're going to be willing to pay for a premium experience to a ridiculous level. Whether that be $150 for a 15-minute Skype conversation with an artist, or
to the level of Fleetwood Mac, where you can fly to the show on a private with them, you and your wife, and I believe that's $10,000 a couple, where you go to dinner with them, and you get to ride in the limo, you stay in the hotel,
Covers
and you
the
get
jet.
to walk to the stage and bring the circle before they go on stage with them, and you fly home with them too. $10,000.
Covers the jet. It's brilliant. But experiences like that, but even on a smaller scale, I take the model of YouTube creators that have made a living off of these meet and greets at conventions. Think of that in the context of a developing artist that, you have fans out there willing to pay $200 to get a selfie in front of a step and repeat. Finding those opportunities for your clients as they develop is monumental to helping them pay their bills and creating, revenue opportunities for them. So as a manager, try not to screw over your fans by charging too much for VIPs. I'm not a proponent of burning that relationship to the ground, but I would never underestimate the amount of money that people are willing to pay for once-in-a-lifetime experiences.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing. We haven't talked about that at all, the fan experience, and I think you were two great guys to get in on this. The fan experience, we haven't talked about them. How important is the fan experience?
Truly, I'm a real music fan and a real fan of live shows. What keeps me going every day. I feel like I live it. I don't want to speak for Elliott, but part of why Elliott and I are friends and work together so much is because he's the same way. Elliott really believes in making shows fun. It's the fan experience is something really special. I'm cautious about monetizing that. I think you have to be really careful. If you have real depth as an artist, you need to be really careful and not try to monetize those connections too much. You need to say no sometimes.
I don't like saying no.
From what perspective are you offering that? Is that because you
don't like saying
screw the
no?
fan, or
agents say no all the time?
I know, and then I send you more money, then you say yes. I know how this works.
That's what we do. We say no on behalf of our clients, their managers. Like, yeah, I don't ever want my clients saying no to anything. Let me say no for you.
But Jack, I want to touch on why you would be cautious on monetizing that. Is that because you're concerned about draining the well with the fan experience or protecting your client? What?
I think you cross a line when you start exploiting people.
Yeah.
And it's there's a nuance there, and it's about respect for the fan. Just because they will pay this much doesn't necessarily mean that you should let them pay that much for whatever the experience is. I think you need to be really careful of it.
Elliott, do you have any feelings about the fan experience in general?
When I was at Coachella last week, I watched Kendrick Lamar, and it was the last act of the festival. And then so I'm in the parking lot trying to get my car out of there, and it seemed like all the guards were like really on earlier in the evening, like go here and go there, and then and late at night, like they were kind of gone, they weren't there anymore or something, or there were none of those guys with their flashlight going go here. So it was sort of like a free for all. And then I kind of had the experience of what it must be like to go to a festival and get stuck with your car when you're trying to leave and you can't get out of there, and how bad you feel, like to, you're like part of a sheep mentality or a herd or something. And so I pictured myself thinking like, okay, the next time I do a festival, I want to have make sure that I'll hire twice as many people for the end of the night than for the beginning of the night, so that it'll be a better experience for people leaving.
Maybe those people will come in later, so they won't have that secondary high from the crowd, which is probably what happened to the Coachella security guards that were just stoned from being so close to the field of weed for 7 hours.
Yeah. And and also the other thing is it's really clean at Coachella. It's really clean. And then so I've done festivals here like Edge Fest and some of this other stuff and the Tragically Hip and whatever. And I go to the guys who clean up at the beginning of the night going, okay, I got this great idea. We're going to keep it really clean all night. And do you understand? Am I paying you enough? And I try to look him in the eye going, and try to get tough or try to get nice or whatever the modus operandi is. And hey, I want you to clean up the garbage. I want you to wade in there. I want you to really do it. Can you do it? Yeah. And then as soon as
Can you talk into the mic?
What?
Can you talk into the mic?
Yeah. And then at 6 o'clock, there's packed, packed with garbage. And it's just so much garbage. So it's sort of the fan experience as far as I see that I wish I could make it better, and I always try to make it better, for the fan. But and I remember the bad old days when there was just pizza is the only food. So now I try to think how can I have better food? I mean, I don't know what it's like at your festivals in England. If I know it's really dirty and muddy, but are there here in North America? There's way more. The food is way better now. You can get sushi and you get all this really good stuff.
Thank you, Nick Adler.
Yes, and the beer is better. And has it changed where you guys are?
So the internet didn't hear since you didn't have a mic. It's getting more expensive, and you're looking. The healthier options are way more expensive at the festivals.
Are you paying attention to what people post on Facebook after your event or emails that you're getting from fans about the live concerts you're producing? How in the weeds do you typically get as a concert promoter in the feedback process?
Well, you sort of worried about if you you don't want to get into an insurance lawsuit with somebody, but other than that, I try to respond to people though, and answer their questions as much as possible, and try to okay, here's my name, here's my phone number, I'm the guy who did the show. I want to
Elliott, on July 2nd at Niagara-on-the-Lake, Butler Barracks. Are we going to have a clean festival site?
You can only hope, right?
That's promoter for shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
We have City and Color headlining. It's going to be an amazing, we're not calling it a festival. It's a concert. But, you should all come out and join us. July 2nd, Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's such a beautiful site in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and it's a great park where it's being held, and City and Color are playing this year, trying to get other people to come in the future. But you do your best. But I remember that when Mumford played there last year or the year before, it was a total clusterfuck as far as people getting outside, leaving the festival. And that's where I was trying to reference that there was nobody there, and people just were going wherever they went, and it took 2 or 3 hours. And whatever your good experience was earlier that evening, watching Mumford and seeing such a great band in such a great area, and having the good food and all that stuff, it all your just blood started boiling when you're sitting there for 3 hours and you couldn't leave the site. So I've been working on terms of trying to make a better plan. In fact, I went up there a few months ago with my associates, and we did some research, and we found out where the line had broken down and what street it was, and how the police all of a sudden decided, like, fuck it, we're going to do whatever we feel like. So we met with them, and we said, like, okay, this road here, you cannot stop it. You've got to, like, open this road according to our plans. And so we've hired somebody to take care of parking, and we've hired a guy to stand at that one point that where it got screwed up last year with the radio, just to say, like, whatever the policeman says, don't listen to him. Like, keep this road going. So I'm
Elliott's the Jewish Canadian version of NWA. Fuck the police.
Don't let my parents hear that. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, well, that's our podcast. Thanks for coming out to Promoter 101.
We appreciate it. We have a few plugs for the next upcoming weeks here, so bear with us here. Next week, we're going to have a monster show with IMP's Seth Hurwitz from DC, ITV's Barry Dickens, from the legendary Public Image Limited and Pigface, Martin Adkins, and APA's Ben Mensch will join us in the podcast as well.
If you have thoughts or any feedback about the podcast, you can always email us at steiny@promoter101.net.
You can follow me at Luke Pierce and Dan at The Jew. And the show is Promoters 101 on Twitter. Jack, you are what on Twitter?
Jack Ross Agent, of course.
Jack Ross Agent. Elliott, are you on Twitter?
No Twitter for me, but I'll be answering your emails. And my email is Elliott@goldenvoice.com, 2 L's, 2 T's. Guys, thank you for doing this, and thanks for the Patron and the donuts.
Yeah, great to have you on the podcast.
Love the donuts. Not so sure about the Patron.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast at Promoter 101 wherever you podcast. And if you liked it, tell a friend. If you didn't like it, please don't tell anyone.
And if you need to catch up into the past podcasts, you can always catch up at promoter101.net.
Past guests include Jay Marciano, Mark Geiger, Tom Windisch, Jamie Lowe, Brian O'Connell, Shep Gordon, John Ginnings, and so many more.
And please give it up for these guys: Dan Steinberg, Jack Ross, Elliott Lefko, Richard
Luke
Mills,
Pierce,
the amazing
Rich
audience
Mills.
here at CMW. Thank you, everybody, for having us out here.
Thank you so much. We'll see you guys at the bar.
Hi, it's Steve Zapp from ITB International Talent Booking Agency. I'm on Promoter 101.